Welcome to Muscatine Viewpoint. This is where we present local news topics from the perspective of our community leaders and citizens. Our opinions are not those of Muscatine Power and Water or Muscatine Community College. This is a community program. Today we have as our guest Jim Edgmond, who's running for mayor of Muscatine. So welcome, Jim, and would you kindly tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, first of all, thanks.
You're very welcome.
Helping me with this. Background. I will get to my background because I think it's kind of interesting. Everybody thinks their own background's pretty interesting, but I want to say something first. Just today I had a couple people that are supporters of mine call me and ask me if it's true that I was dropping out of the race. So somebody, somewhere, is spreading rumors that I'm dropping out of the race. Nothing could be more outrageous than that. I've been planning this campaign for well over a year, and I've been committed to this campaign for even longer than that, and there's no way I'm dropping out of this race. I am committed to this to the bitter end.
So the rumors, if we've heard any, are totally not true, and you are committed to run until the election, which is coming up in November.
Yeah, November 2nd. So my background.
Yeah.
Let's get back to that.
Yeah, tell us.
I was born in Montana. I went to Montana State, got a civil engineering degree from Montana State in 1978. I moved here in 1979 to go to work at Stanley's.
Same year I moved here.
Is it really?
Yeah.
God, that's cool. And I had a cousin that had come to Muscatine a couple years earlier as a structural engineer.
Okay.
And when he came home for a Christmas break, he just raved about how good the company was and what a great place Muscatine was, and that they had an international department, and that kind of fit into some of my goals.
Sure.
I wanted to live overseas for an extended period of time and work overseas.
And did you end up getting to do that?
I did. After a couple years, 2 or 3 years at Stanley's, I went overseas and worked for 15 months in just a really not so nice place called North Yemen.
Oh.
And I was a bit of a liberal then, and after 15 months overseas, watching how a good portion of the rest of the world lives, I'm not going to say I came back conservative, but I got more conservative on a lot of things. And what I really came back was a bit of a hawk, because you can't go overseas, you can't work overseas for an extended period of time like that, that you don't come back and have a whole brand new perspective and appreciation for this country. This country's not perfect, but we're better than anybody else. I'm
So what
convinced
were
of
you
that.
doing in Yemen?
There was a town there called Taiz, and it was about 150,000 people, and they had no water and no sewer systems.
So you were putting in water and sewer systems,
Water and sewer
as
systems.
Stanley Consultants does, or
No,
did?
it was a construction management contract, so we were just overseeing the construction. We didn't do anything with the design. And it was brutal. I weighed 210 pounds when I went, and I weighed 165 when I came back.
Oh my gosh. Was it worrying or heat or what?
It was just a lot of hard work, and you couldn't get access to candy. There was no such thing as like sweets you could get. And there was, I guess I'm going to say it. And there was no alcohol.
Yeah. So no libations here, huh?
Yeah. So I came back from that, and I was in Muscatine for a little while longer, and then Stanley's transferred me to Chicago to be in their Chicago office, and I was there for a couple years there, and I couldn't quite convince Stanley's that there should be a cost of living differential between Muscatine and Chicago, and I actually got a job as a city engineer in one of the near suburbs of Chicago called Wheeling.
And that's what you did in Muscatine also. You were city engineer.
No, when I was in Muscatine here, I worked as a design engineer for Stanley's as a project manager.
But then you became the engineer for the city of Muscatine.
Yeah, but that was the last. That was that was the
Yeah.
last 6 years or 7 years.
Okay, go ahead with the sequence of.
Okay, so Stanley's in Chicago. Then I was the city engineer for the village of Wheeling, and then when the kids arrived, I decided I didn't want to live in Chicago anymore. So I got a job as the city engineer and public works director in Sullivan, Missouri, which was about 50 miles outside of Sullivan.
And what size community is that?
It was only about 15,000 in the city, and then it had a ring of unincorporated houses and stuff around it. that were about maybe another 5,000 or 6,000
So
people.
sort of similar to Muscatine. Not.
Wheeling was about the same size as Muscatine, but it was all big city, high development pressure and huge traffic problems. Lots of traffic working their way through town to get to the interstate there, and so you got to see the big city problems and the big city perspective. And Sullivan wasn't that much different than Muscatine either, but it was all by itself out in the middle of the county, and you got to see the small town perspective.
So you've had a various background, various experiences.
And seen cities that are smaller, you can do it this way, bigger, you can do it this way, the good, the bad, and dare I say even the ugly.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
So that's kind of my background. I got a wife and 2 kids and 3 grandkids.
And of course, we're all interested in knowing, what piqued your interest. Why did you decide to run for mayor of all things?
Perfect question. I should have written that down, given that one to you.
Yeah.
When I graduated from Montana State, I wrote 8 things down, and the first 7 were things that I was going to accomplish in my career.
Wow.
Now, it's not a bucket list. It's not in my life. It was just my career as a civil engineer. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. I was going to do this. I was going to be a success at my first job was number 1, but one of them was run an office. One of them was start my own business and work as a civil engineer. But the 8th one is added in a different color ink, and it says run for political office.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
I'm not 100% sure of this, because how do you tell what happened that long ago?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I even remember writing it in there, much less my reasons. But that was always my brother's dream, was when he retired from the military, was to go back to our hometown and run for mayor and try to give back to a community like
Sure.
that. And then when he passed, he died pretty young from cancer. And I think about the time that he died, I think I wrote that in there because it just felt like the right thing to do.
Fulfill his dream, kind of, but
Yeah.
still, you were interested probably, and
Absolutely.
you had worked in Muscatine by that time, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
you were,
'Cause
kind of
when
like
we
the
left,
town.
When we left Sullivan in '92, we came back here, and I went back to work for Stanley. So that kind of completes the loop.
Sure. So that was your motivation
Yeah.
of running for election.
Yeah, that, and in the last 6 years, so I retired about a year ago. So
Well, I knew that
6
you-
years.
yeah, I
6
knew that
years
you were
before that,
retired.
I was a city engineer here, and I attended almost every city council meeting. Maybe there was as many as you can count on one hand. Maybe there's 5 meetings I missed in that series of years. I saw a lot of things I really didn't like, and so I think there are things that we can do for the
Were
city.
there
that
something
are much
specific
better.
that you really didn't like that you can talk about?
Yes. Specifically, one thing. The mayor, and this was the discussion I had with my wife. She said, well, why don't you run for city council? I said, I don't want to run for city council. They're the ones that have got, the programs and the platforms and things they're working for. But I said, right now, what this city needs is somebody that can get everybody at that council to work together. And I've worked with all of them before. I think I can do it. And I just don't think that the current mayor has a true handle on what leadership is all about. You can't vote, so you really, but you can provide leadership to those people in the council.
That's an important thing. The mayor doesn't vote.
No. But you can provide leadership, and specifically, I've seen them as a group vote for something that I know was not in the best interest of the citizens of this community, and I'm seeing them vote down something that was in the holistic best interest of the city. And the reason that happens is because I think they just didn't have the whole picture. They didn't understand it all.
Yeah.
And at any point in time, a mayor can go, okay, I can see that there's a difference of opinion. They sound pretty strong. It sounds to me like maybe we could use some more information. Let's get a list of questions written down. Let's table this item.
Yeah.
Let's get these questions to staff, and let's let them bring it back, because apparently staff isn't giving us the information that we need to understand this, so we can
Well,
vote on
and
it
having worked
knowledgeably.
in the trenches, so to speak, I mean, you've had the experience then, so you know that maybe an issue that you're trying to present doesn't necessarily, or tried to present, doesn't necessarily get explained appropriately. And I know I watch city council meetings, so I know you were up there a lot explaining things. So
Yeah, but usually in response to questions they had. But you also make a presentation, and you get done with the presentation, and they might ask you a few questions. But just from the questions they ask, you know, the little red light starts to go off on
Sure.
the back of your head. So whoop, and they don't quite have this yet.
yeah,
But
and there's a lot to have. I mean, there's a lot
Oh,
to
yeah, it's-
comprehend.
and I'm not trying to be critical of
Yeah.
them. I just think I can help in that process.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you.
Provide some leadership. Yeah, leadership is leading those who need to be led, listening to those that need to be listened to, doing what needs to be done, and saying what needs to be said. And the toughest part of that whole job is saying what needs to be said when it needs to be said.
Well, and so, say you're elected mayor, I'm assuming you'd have some office hours and you would be talking with citizens. And I think you just said listening's important. So,
It is.
as a citizen, I mean, you obviously, having been the city engineer, heard from citizens a lot. But what does the mayor need to say to citizens? I mean, what they need to hear? Are we cover that over? What do we do? How do you do that?
That's a loaded question.
It is a
isn't it?
loaded question. You want to answer it?
Of course, I can answer it. It all goes back down to the engineering analysis of policy and politics. So you know the engineer is going to have some sort of rule here. So first of all, my whole entire platform is whatever is good for this city, we have got to get it going. So if it's what's best for the city and the citizens, you vote for it. And if it's not in the best interest of the citizens of the city, you vote against it. So that covers 10% out here and 10% out here. You got 80% in the middle that just maybe you're not sure of or anything like that. But you've got to listen to citizens and figure out what is over the whole overarching of the whole entire process, what is best for the city.
Mm-hmm. And would you say
You can't please all the people all the time, but you know, if a single person or a small group of people come in and they want to do something, they want to, you know, put in a new street or take a street out. I'm just
or
throwing ideas.
allow parking here and not parking there,
Yeah,
or
or something that's unsafe, but they still think they want to do it. Nowhere does that benefit everybody. You know, it might benefit a small little portion of the city, but you've got to take everybody's needs into account. And so you can listen, you can do the best job you can of explaining to them. I think one of the things that the mayor currently does is that she will listen to people that come and have a concern or complaint, but then she takes that burden onto herself,
Mm-hmm.
and she starts proceeding. I really think that's wrong. If the mayor is who you want to get to, I will have office hours. I will have set office hours, and I will be there, unlike our current mayor. And I can listen to him, but we're going to get staff involved, and we're going to get a whole entire coordinated look at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody comes in and has something they want to have done, I'm certainly not going to tell them straight off the bat, yeah, we're going to do it. I mean, we've got to make sure that it's in the entire best interest of the city.
Well, and having worked, as we said, so to speak, in the trenches, you kind of understand the process of the city side, how all of that works, and you're not a newbie to the whole council aspect or the mayor aspect. So you kind of have it figured out who needs to get what piece of it, whether it's the staff or the council or the mayor.
Or at least with the staff, where to start.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I just maybe I'll just dovetail this in here right now. I have a plan. You know, infrastructure is my thing. I mean, my whole life, my whole professional life, I've worked with infrastructure of one sort or another. But I have a plan that I know will work. I've talked with the finance director. I've talked with the director of public works. And if we're patient and we all row in the boat together in the same direction and figure out that this is what's in the best interest of the city, and I have an infrastructure where we can for sure double and maybe even triple the amount of money we spend on streets and fixing streets.
Wow.
And it won't increase taxes or fees of any kind at all. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you any more than that because I'm afraid somebody will steal the idea.
Yeah.
It is that good.
Well, that's good.
The cool thing about the revenue stream that finances that infrastructure is that every, and I'm not sure of this, but every 3 years or something like that, the citizens get to vote on whether they want to continue to do that or not.
So there's input
So there's
from the
accountability.
community.
There's
Yeah.
accountability that goes along with it. It isn't just a tax that's going to come in and stay there, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's accountability that comes with it, and I think that's a monsterly good idea. And I think I've probably not tooted that horn enough.
Yeah.
But I really think that.
So when you're talking about infrastructure, if I'm just tuning in, tell me what kinds of things we're talking about.
Well, the infrastructure that everybody complains about the most is streets.
Of course.
But there are other things infrastructure-wise in this community that really need some attention, and obviously we're going through this huge sewer separation series of projects.
Yes.
And I think we've got 7 more years to go in the process, and we may not even be, or the city may not even be done by then.
Sure.
There may be little stuff that still needs to be done. But, I mean, you're doing the sewer and MP&W's coming along, and if the water mains need to be replaced or fixed or whatever, they're doing that part. And then, you get a new street out of it too. So that money has been going towards a lot of infrastructure work, but that's all going to come to an end here pretty soon.
So what you're saying is that you have an idea of an infrastructure plan that will continue the rebuilding of our streets and our sewer systems and
on par
augment
with,
into the future.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Good. To be announced. So is that one of the most important issues facing the office of mayor, the infrastructure in the town?
I know.
Or what would be some issues?
Yeah. Hey, I know from talking to the mayor and councilman over the years that the biggest headache, there we go, there's the word I'm after, headache. The biggest headache is people complaining about the streets.
Sure.
Now there's other things, but the other thing that I have some insight and experience into is housing. Now, I'm not talking like the low to moderate income housing projects that are currently going on in Muscatine, and there were a couple that would go back a couple years, and I think there's 3 of them going on right now. Mm-hmm. And certainly with the housing study that the city did, it identified that was a need. But we also need market rate housing. We really do need it, and that's whether it's multi-use type, where it's second, third story housing and commercial on the first floor, or single family homes, or all of that. And in 6 years as city engineer, there was really only one subdivision that was done, and that's just not right. And we've got to figure out as a group how we get around that. And the most important thing to it is that I think we're stuck in the way that things were done in the 60s maybe, or 70s. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, but I mean, we've got to make it so that we got to realize that we're competing for those dollars, and we got to go compete for them, not just sit back. Nobody's just going to come.
Well,
to us
and I think
say, hey, we're going to do this.
Housing has been noted as a big need in Muscatine, and we just had a home that was purchased through the prison industry for, I'm assuming it's low-income housing, but for some time, the infrastructure housing in Muscatine is old, and
getting older.
And having been on the school board, the schools are in the same kind of situation. So, well, kudos to you for looking at the housing and how we can implement better housing at all levels. It sounds like, not just for low income.
we got to change our attitude. We got to change our mindset. You mean in the good old days, you just sat back and waited for developers to come to you, and then you gave them a set of rules. This is what you need to follow. Yeah, we can't do that. We gotta go encourage it. We gotta go fight for it, and then we gotta make it. I mean, I'm not sure that this is the right way to say it. Obviously, staff and a lot of other people would have input on this. MP&W would need to have input on this.
Sure.
All the people that provide the utilities. But I mean, I think we got to make it on par with what it costs to develop in the county. And if we can get down to a number that's similar to what the county is, I think we'd see a change.
That's good. Well, we hope they're the best. There sounds like a good
Me
idea.
too.
Sounds like a good idea. Well, I guess what would you say? I mean, you have these ideas, so obviously, as an engineer, that's what engineers do is they come up with good ideas. But what would be some of your qualifications? So we would say, well, he'd be a good mayor. What would those qualifications be that you have?
Well, I think going back to the experience, I think I've seen what cities operate that are smaller than we are. I've seen how cities operate that are bigger than we are, so smaller and low development pressure, where there just was no hope on the horizon for anything, and bigger cities where there was development pressure. I mean, when I was city engineer in Wheeling, you talk to developers, maybe 10 different developers every week would come in and we have this and we want to build this, and you would talk to them and you'd say, okay, well, make sure you do this. It was definitely you were the in the
conduits.
catbird seat.
Yeah.
I mean, they came to you.
Yeah.
And when I was at Sullivan, it was constantly, how in the world are we going to get people to build houses in here instead of building them out in the county? And so I have perspective on that. That idea for Muscatine is not a new one. I stole
Well,
it from
and that
Sullivan.
sounds like the climate maybe just hasn't been developed to encourage developers, and so.
And obviously I've worked with the staff, and I've worked with the city council and a lot of the other entities like the funding agencies that provide funds.
So you have experience, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
To help.
And I don't think having political experience is necessary, nor do I think it's a qualification. I'm not a politician. I don't know what you want to call me. I'm an independent. I don't owe any debts to the Republican Party. I'm not going to do something because the Republican Party wants me to. I'm not going to do anything the Democrats want me to do because I'm not a Democrat. I'm a fierce independent, and the only goal is to get everybody to work together.
Cool.
So I think that experience of getting people to work together, from the city engineer, it's kind of the same thing. You really don't have any say in the vote. You've just got to chat with people and try to convince them that this is the right
Provide
thing to
the
do.
information, and
Yeah.
then hopefully they'll.
And then see if they understand it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, be sure and make sure that they know they have the right to ask for more information, table an item, and hopefully move on in the future.
So not to get into such a heavy-duty talk here again, but I understand your mother was in town, and what was your mother doing here?
Hey, I have a friend that refers to her as the Ageless Wonder.
Okay.
She's 92, and she remarried 24 years ago. So she married a guy that was the same age, and they are still live in their own home out in Billings, Montana. And he still goes and works in his wood shop, and she volunteers at the hospital and does a bunch of other
Real
stuff.
active lifestyle.
Yeah,
then.
they have a more active lifestyle than I do, I think.
Yeah.
But anyhow, they flew out because the third great-grandchild arrived a month or so ago.
Congratulations.
And, yeah, thank you. And she just couldn't wait to get out here to
Hold the
see her.
baby.
Yeah, exactly. So while they were out here, I drove them around, and they helped me put up some campaign signs. And it wasn't planned, but she had a red, white, and blue shirt on.
Oh my
that day.
goodness. So yeah, opportunity
So
here.
the picture that I took was just perfect.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. Good old mom was here, huh? Endorsing your campaign. So that brings up, evidently you have some insight into future campaign finance and reform. So can you tell us about what your ideas are?
Yeah, because it's not really my idea. It's
Okay.
my wife's idea,
Oh, okay.
Cindy. We watched, everybody relates to this, but Joni Ernst, Teresa Greenfield,
Yes. Yes.
remember that campaign?
Yes.
You couldn't get away from it. TV commercial after TV commercial after TV commercial after TV commercial. And I remember seeing somewhere that Senate race set a record for the amount of money spent, both parties together.
Yes.
And when we heard that, my wife turned to me and she said, "That's just criminal." And I said, "Well, what's criminal? Like, they can spend as much money as they want." She goes, "Yeah, but it's really just a waste." And she said, "Politicians should be made for every dollar they spend on their campaign. They should have to donate a dollar to a good cause."
That's a great idea.
I honestly, it is, and so I just stole it from her.
Yeah.
But
Good Cindy, huh?
this campaign, I'm running for mayor. I am doing that. That's what this bracelet is all about. You get one for going over the edge and raising money for
Yes.
big brothers and big sisters by rappelling off the edge of a building.
And you did that?
I did that. I jumped in a canoe and helped a buddy of mine with the last 8 days of his trip down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico.
Really? Wow.
He went from Minnesota to there,
Yeah.
and he had people help him with every section, but he didn't have anybody help him with that last piece. And so I
How
helped
exciting.
him do that.
Yeah.
Well, it was scary. I wouldn't use exciting at all.
It's scary, huh?
Yeah,
On the Mississippi, huh?
be in a canoe and see an alligator next to you.
Oh,
I mean,
well, yeah.
they're down there. So that was kind of interesting. But he was also raising money for a clean water initiative that has huge implications with the Mississippi River here.
Yes.
And the Dubuque National Aquarium was one of his sponsors, one of his main sponsors.
Uh-huh.
So I think he raised over $30,000
My
with
goodness,
that.
yeah.
So I did a little bit of math, and I said, okay, he was in the canoe for 62 days, and I was only there for 8. So 8, 60 seconds, and then there was 2 of us in the canoe, so you take that and cut it in half. But still, I think I helped raise some of that money.
Yeah.
So you put those 2 things together, and then we did the crop. My wife and I did the crop walk, and then there's one more walk coming up. But I've had more money go to good causes and than I have spent on my campaign.
That's good.
And if everybody did that,
Yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
how much money that would put.
It certainly benefits the community.
The
Crop walk, the
it
food,
benefits
the river, all of that.
everybody,
Yeah, everybody. Well, kudos to you. So, kind of in wrapping up here, what is it that you really would like the public to know about Jim Edgmond, candidate for mayor of Muscatine?
I'm trying to think something we haven't already chatted about.
Well, can think of things like engineer, the whole idea of leadership.
Yeah. But we talked about those. So
Yeah.
hopefully they've been listening. and
Yeah,
they know that.
hopefully. But I mean, and just listening, just
Yeah.
talking to you, yeah.
I think, I retired from being a city engineer in Muscatine a little over a year ago. And my wife and I had a discussion. I mean, she's not originally from here, and I'm not originally from here. We've lived here a long time. But I wanted to at least have the conversation. And I said, we can go live anywhere we want. And your mom and dad are down in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I happen to really like that area, that country. It's not so tough in the wintertime. And
Yeah.
it's great in the summertime. And
As
especially
a
in the
city
fall.
engineer, I'm sure you've had your times in Muscatine's winter, so.
Yeah. But we talked it over, and we decided that this is home. This is where we put down roots. And if this is going to be home, then I want to be involved in making it better. I think this town has a tremendous amount going for it. And I think this town suffers from a little bit of a insecurity complex. And maybe people who grew up here maybe don't think of it the way an outsider would see it. But with the riverfront, gosh, I love this Almost Friday
Fest, yeah.
that goes on. Those people that have been responsible for doing that, I think they deserve all the credit in the world. We should be doing everything we can to make that a success, and then try to get some other things that don't conflict with it or compete with it going too. I mean, I don't see that as the end all.
Yeah. Well, and this year they've tried to
Yeah.
put other events into it. So you see an effort at collaboration and
Right.
working together and,
And I think that
growing
needs
the town, kind
yeah,
of.
I think that
Yeah.
needs to be. I think it needs to be put forth and worked on. And I mean, I would be lying to you and to everybody else out there that listens to this if I didn't tell you that the fact that our son, when he graduated from college as a mechanical engineer, got a job in Muscatine, and he and his wife and 3 kids don't live very far away. you know how that influences where you're going to live.
Absolutely. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have to go to Arizona or Florida or wherever, or Indiana.
Carolina, like
Yeah.
some friends of mine do. Both
Yeah.
their kids moved to North Carolina, but and our daughter just lives in Des Moines. So, gosh, I think we'd be fools to go live anywhere else. But if Muscatine wasn't a great place to live, for me at least, and for my wife at least, we wouldn't stay. We'd go somewhere else. But we think it's great. We think
So
it could
you're-
be greater.
Your hopes right now are to become the mayor, and I don't know, what's the term of the mayor? Is it a couple
It's
years?
just 2 years. Yeah.
2 years, so,
You get to do it all over again.
yeah.
So you got to be committed.
Well, you do, but kudos for trying. So, as we, as I said, wrap up here, is there anything else that you want to tell us, or,
Well, just to reiterate that I'm a fierce independent. I really just and weak mayor form of government. The job of the mayor is to cheer for the ideas, support the ideas, work for the ideas that are what's good for the citizens in the city, and to try to glean out politics and nonsense. My campaign slogan is common sense and no nonsense, because if you get politics involved, if you want a Republican in there, they're going to have built-in disagreements with the Democrats. And if there's a Democratic mayor, they're going to have built-in differences with the Republicans. You need an avowed independent that really doesn't have any personal agenda or policies that they want to do. The only thing I want is what the rest of the people who live in this community want, and I'm convinced of this. The other people who live in this community just want what's best for this town. And if it passes that test, then let's go for it.
good for you, and having lived here for probably 40-some years, it's like
Yeah.
you've kind of seen things ebb and flow, and now you're wanting to be the mayor and get us all together again. So, again, thank you for being our guest today. This is a broadcast on Muscatine Access Channel 9 and YouTube. As we said earlier, all the content is not that of Muscatine Power and Water or Muscatine Community College, but this is a community program. So Muscatine Viewpoint, this program, as I said, will be airing on Channel 9 and on YouTube.